Hello guys, and welcome to another session of Crafty Creatives. A session of Crafty Creatives by me, Leon. Hello guys, and welcome to another session of Crafty Creatives. A session of Crafty Creatives by me, Leon. Hello guys, and welcome to a session. Just bear with me 1 minute while I just resolve our audio issues. Crafty Creatives. A session of Crafty Creatives by me, Leon. Hello guys, and welcome to a session. Just bear with me 1 minute while I just resolve our audio issues. Crafty Creatives. A session of Crafty Creatives by me, Leon. Hello guys, and welcome to a session. Just bear with me 1 minute while I just resolve our audio issues. Crafty Creatives. A session of Crafty Creatives by me, Leon. Hello guys, and welcome to a session. Just bear with me 1 minute while I just resolve our audio issues. Welcome to another session, a Media Savvy session for our exciting new Crafty Creative series. And this series is going to explore different ways that we can use our hand-drawn practical skills and merge them with digital art and media through different packages available online and available to download. So this series is called Crafty Creatives, and if you just bear with me 1 minute, I'll just bring up our course available online and available course outline. So just to explain to you series is called a little bit more about this, about our session, our course is available online. This course outline. Bring this up. So just to explain to you series. Okay, so yes, this is Crafty Illustrations, and it's a taster session. It's a 1 day, 1 afternoon taster session, just exploring digital art through utilising hand-drawn sketching and different methods of capturing images from a hand-drawn sketches. It's part of our Crafty Creative series that we've decided to do because we have a lot of feedback from you guys as to you've got a lot of interest in different arts and crafts, and there is a lot of interest in how we can utilise computers in order to kind of get the most out of our skills. So what we're looking at doing is building this Crafty Creative series, which is a 6-week set of courses. The first one is going to be Crafty Illustrations, and the second, so that's a 6-week course including today's taster, and then we're going to look at after that we're going to look at typography and fonts, and it really it's a learning curve for us at Media Savvy also, because these are some of the really cool art and design kind of niches that we always come across and we have a really good understanding on, but there's always areas that we can improve our knowledge, and this is we're going to also take benefit from delivering these courses, so we can also kind of explore these areas of interest ourselves as well. As you can see from the course, I'm just quickly flicking back there just to make sure that you guys can see everything that I'm doing. Also, if you've got any comments, please put them in our chat. Like I said, it's the first time I'm just working in a home environment, so you have to bear with us. Everything that I'm doing. Also, if you've got any comments, please. Okay, so what we're going to look at doing today is working in a home environment. So we're looking at delivering the first session today for Crafty Illustrations, and we are also open to your suggestions as to how we can move this series of Crafty Creatives courses on. So please give us your feedback. You can send me an email at leon@mediasavvycic.co.uk. Give me an email, or you can contact us through our social media, and just register your interest in other areas that you might think that you would like to explore as well, and we'll look at this developing those in the future. Alright, so let's move on then. So, like I say, Crafty Illustrations is a 6-week course, and then we're going to look at, after that we're going to look at typography, and we're going to develop a course around typography, the design of fonts, and how that is used in the industry. So, as always, we have an enrollment form to fill in. Please download our enrollment forms and fill them in. It takes 5 minutes to do. I'll just quickly show you our form here. It's section B and C that we are really interested in. Just bear with me 1 minute. Okay, just need to check enrollment forms and fill them in. It takes 5 minutes to do. I'll just quickly show you our form here. Okay, I'm just going to show you this. Please have a quick look at this this form, and I'm just going to just set up the rest of today's session. Okay, I'm just going to show you this. Please have a quick look at this this form, and I'm just going to just set up the rest of today's session. Okay, I'm just going to show you this. Please have a quick look at this this form, and I'm just going to just set up the rest of today's session. Okay, I'm just going to show you this. Please have a quick look at this this form, and I'm just going to just set up the rest of today's session. Okay, I'm just going to show you this. Please have a quick look at this this form, and I'm just going to just set up the rest of today's session. Okay, I'm just going to So I am. Thank you, Gary. This is brilliant. Thanks very much. Can you hear me now? Is everyone all right? Okay, right. Let's move on. Right. So apologies for that. A few little technical hitches, but hopefully we're we're up and running now. Okay, so as mentioned before, this is our course. This is a taster session that we're doing today, okay, and it's going to look at vector images. What are vector images, and what's the difference between bitmap and vector images, and how they are applied in the industry today. And then the full course, which starts next week, it's a 5-week course, and we're looking at creating artwork for different scenarios. So we've got artwork for a birthday, a civil ceremony, bereavements, things like that. And these can change, by the way, guys. It's just something I've put in there. But we're going to look at creating artwork from scratch using our yeah, can hear me? Brilliant. Yeah, I'm just quickly checking our chat there. So these are just placeholders really for until we get your feedback. But this is how we'll go if you're happy with that. And what we're going to do is we're going to create our artwork from scratch using a pen and paper or pencil or a marker, and then we're going to move the artwork. We're going to take the artwork from the pad and put it into a vector-based program. Okay, so we can generate vector images. Okay, now some of you guys might know what vector images are, but today's session is just an overview on what is a vector image. And how we can quickly capture a vector image, how we can obtain already constructed vector images, but most importantly, we need to understand what a vector image is. All right. So, how we'll work today, we're gonna research some artwork ideas. We're gonna draw some artwork live in today's session, and then we're gonna digitize the artwork in Illustrator. And that is going to be in the second half of today's session. The first half of today's session is going to be looking at vector images. Okay, so when I say half the session, about 2 o'clock, we're going to have a little break, and then I'm going to set my camera up, and then we're going to do a little bit of a sketching activity just to show you quickly how easy it is to capture vector images from your sketches or other sources. Okay, so this is what we're going to look at today. What is a vector image? What's the difference between a vector and a bitmap, or a vector and a raster image? Why we use them, and what programs we can use to create vector images. Okay, and this is really the main difference, guys. These two comparisons here. So if you've ever took a photograph and you've zoomed right into the photograph, you'll see that the photograph or image is made up of these blocks here. If you zoom right in to the image, they're made up of these little blocks, a bit like Lego, and they build the image. Okay, and as you zoom out, those blocks get smaller and smaller and smaller until you can't see them anymore, and you just process the whole image. That's what a raster or a bitmap image is. A vector image, on the other hand, which is on the right hand side obviously, it's not formed from blocks. It's formed by paths, shapes and anchor points. Okay, so basically a bit like global coordinates on a map, we have kind of virtual coordinates on our workspace, and we plot points on that path on that workspace, and between those points are paths that follow the route of those points, and those paths are the mathematical kind of coordinates that form that image. Okay, so the main difference in the two is that if you come to scale up the vector image, those coordinates and those paths, if you come to make them bigger, if you want to make them 100 times bigger, or if you want to make them 5,000 times bigger, the computer works out the maths and scales up those points relative to each other, and the shape of the paths and the resolution of that path and of the kind of the sharpness of that image will not change at all. Okay, you won't lose any quality. Whereas a raster image, for example, if you scale that image up to 100 times, you'll notice that it becomes more and more blurry because it's not set up in the same way as a vector. Okay. Now I've got a little video to show you just to probably contextualize that a little bit better, and then we'll move on. All right. So just bear with me 1 minute. I'll find the video, and let's. So that's the difference there. There's a difference there. And quickly, before I actually do find that video, I've just found these images. These are what vector graphics can be used for. Okay, so because we've got paths, we can then use other machines that are attached to the computer, like a laser cutter or a CNC cutter, or a specific cutter that is linked to those paths, linked to the computer, and those machines can then follow those paths to create these these lovely little objects here. As you can see, you've got hundreds and hundreds of different ideas here that are used, whereas you couldn't do that using a raster image. However, you can convert raster images to vectors, and I will be showing you that a little bit later today as well. So if we quickly jump onto YouTube, I found a really good video to show you quickly.
Show you the differences between vector and raster graphics. Let's start with a quick explanation of raster graphics. They are made of millions of colored picture points. You may know them as pixels. Vector graphics are made of anchor points, which are defined by coordinates and mathematical formulas. Through paths, these anchor points can then be connected, rounded, and colored in. Let's look at some examples to see what that means. Because raster graphics have a limited amount of pixels, they become blurry when scaled up in size, whereas vector graphics are mathematically recalculated and scaling won't affect their quality. However, when we scale the graphics down, they both look good. And there's also a difference in file size. Take this flag for an example. The vector graphic has a... Hello design friends, and welcome to our new video. Today we're going to show you the differences between vector and raster graphics. Let's start with a quick explanation of raster graphics. They are made of millions of colored picture points. You may know them as pixels. Vector graphics are made of anchor points, which are defined by coordinates and mathematical formulas. Through paths, these anchor points can then be connected, rounded, and colored in. Let's look at some examples to see what that means. Because raster graphics have a limited amount of pixels, they become blurry when scaled up in size, whereas vector graphics are mathematically recalculated and scaling won't affect their quality. However, when we scale the graphics down, they both look good. And there's also a difference in file size. Take this flag for an example. The vector graphic has a file size of 152 kilobytes and consists of 2 elements. The raster graphic is 2.7 megabytes and consists of almost 200,000 pixels. When scaling the flag up in size, the file of the raster graphic also increases in size, proportional to its number of pixels. The vector graphic file, on the other hand, stays the same. So now that we know the differences, when do we use what? Raster graphics are used for almost everything, but it's best to use them for detailed images, whereas vector graphics are used for less detailed images such as logos, text, and illustrations. Raster graphics are created by us every single day. Every time you take a picture, save a JPEG file on your computer, or screenshot a certain snap on your phone, you create a raster graphic. With vector graphics, it's a little bit more complicated. Every anchor of every object has to be placed individually in a vector program. Both raster and vector graphics can be converted into the other file, although converting a vector graphic is a lot easier because the computer can simply render a graphic as pixels. The raster graphic, on the other hand, has to be retraced with paths, and the outcome is often different to the original. The paths can also be created with an image tracing tool. The results of that can be either detailed, rough, or rather interesting. And that is it. Now you know the difference between a vector and a raster graphic. We hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more. Have a lovely day, and we will see you very soon. Goodbye!
Okay guys, so that was a really brief look at the difference between raster and vector, and hopefully that gives you an idea on where we're going with today's session. Okay, so there's many benefits for using both ones. When I first was learning graphics and when I was first looking at vectors, I thought, well, why don't we just use vectors all the time if it's so efficient? But as it is explained in the video, you can't. Most images get captured in a JPEG, for example, or photographs and things like that, and it's impossible to do because photographs are used to capture JPEG images. But vectors are a different little animal, and it's used really for graphical work. Okay, and that's where we're going to look at developing our knowledge as the sessions progress. All right. So what can we use to create vector images? Okay, obviously vector images are used using a computer software, and there is some cool bits of kit out there. So we've got Illustrator, which is the go-to industry standard, and Illustrator is made by Adobe, if you didn't know, and Adobe do the likes of Photoshop, Premiere, After Effects and things like that. Okay, so if Photoshop is the raster kind of master, if you like, Illustrator is the vector master program. Okay, and within Illustrator we have some really cool tools in there which I'll be showing you. I might show you a little bit today, but I'll definitely show you in the future courses. They've got some tracing tools in there where you can bring in your own images. Actually, I'll show you as I'm talking because I've got Illustrator up. So this is Illustrator here, and this is what I'm using to design our course flyers. Okay, so all these elements here are created in Illustrator. Okay, and as you can see, there's a very good example there. As I zoom in, the Media Savvy logo here is a vector image. Okay, but obviously we're not going to zoom in that far into the image, so it doesn't become that obvious. Whereas the vector image, it doesn't matter how much we zoom in, and we can't zoom in anymore, and that resolution stays the same. Okay, so one of the cool features to Illustrator is that we have a tracing system in here, and I'll quickly show you it. I'm not going to talk you through all the different bits and pieces to it, but I'll just quickly show you an example of how it works, just to give you an idea. There's a live trace here. I'll just copy this image, bring it out of this group, and we can do a live trace. So if I look at this, and I'm not talking you through how to do it, I'm just going to show you an example of it. Okay, we're going to look at how to do all this in the future sessions. So, okay, live trace, we can make a live trace, and then there you go. I mean, obviously that isn't very good, but you do have lots of ways we can play around with these images. And if I locate my live trace little toolbar there, you can see we've got different controls and different settings here to mess around with the image to create the image, the vector image in roughly to the way we want it. Okay, and then we've got loads of different controls here, so on and so forth. And as you can see, it's trying to generate the image. And if I just trace that there, just copy this, bring that out. just show you a few other examples of playing around with the settings. Create outlines with it as well. There you go, and obviously you need to play around with the thresholds and what have you and the paths. And these are now lines, okay, and not just one image here. Now this isn't a very good example, I must admit, but it'll give you an idea on the processes that we can look at doing. Okay, now another, so I'm going to come out with that for now, and we'll get back to that a little bit later. But one of the other things that we were going to look at is how to create them from scratch as well, and that's what we're going to probably be looking at most, or we're going to look at creating them from scratch, vector images, and the tools that we need to use to do that. But also we're going to look at combining a trace with vector tools to kind of adapt a trace. So you might get a trace that is it gets you about 80% of the way there, and then you might need to adapt it a little bit further to get it all the way there to the way you're looking at developing your image. Okay, but so that's Illustrator. But alongside Illustrator, you notice Illustrator is a paid bit of software. There's also a software out there called Inkscape, which is another vector-based program, but it's free. And if you go onto the website, I'll just quickly explain a little bit about it. So this is a website here. This link or this document will be available for you guys after today's session. I'll put the link to it in our description. You can download and access this presentation, and in that presentation are all the links that I'm talking about today. Okay, if you hit the download button there, it'll take you to the different versions available for Inkscape, and the tools and the way the tools look and the toolbars look very similar to Illustrator as well. So if you are familiar with Illustrator, Inkscape will be very easy to grasp as well. And what I'm going to do throughout the course of Crafty Illustrations is that I'm going to create something in Illustrator, and then I'm going to show you how to create it in Inkscape as well. So you might have Illustrator already on your computer, and then you can happily do that. But if you don't have Illustrator, you don't have access to Illustrator, I'll show you how to do it in Inkscape. And this is going to be really interesting as well, because I've only used Inkscape a few times, but we'll see how it goes. We'll be learning this together. Okay, so Inkscape is a free version, a free vector-based software out there that you can use to create all your vectors. Okay, you can bring in your sketches by taking photographs, scanning them in, and then saving them to your computer, and then opening them as you would in Photoshop or something like that. So that's our vector-based downloadable programs. We've also got some online tools which I wasn't aware of until I've done a bit of research for these sessions today, and the up and coming sessions. I came across this one called Icon 8, and this is a really cool bit of kit here, and I'm just going to quickly show you around here. You can sign in, provide your usual logging details when you sign in. Just username, create a password and an email address. You can sign in, and then there's lots of free backgrounds and templates that you can use to create your own vectors. So if I show you this here, they don't have all the tools available in Illustrator, but if you've got a quick flyer that you want to make, this is brilliant, and this is really good because it also puts them in to social media formats as well. So if you look at this little middle bit here, you've got all the different the size resolutions for the different social media platforms. On the left hand side, you've got search feature here where you can search for images. These are all obviously photographs, but for illustrations here, you've got some illustrations. Backgrounds, you've got backgrounds. Here's some vector backgrounds here, which you can just drag and place onto your image there. Okay, and then you can mess about with the graphic themselves. You can flip them over, you can rotate them, you can crop them, change the colors and things like that. Okay, now I've only explored this briefly, so I'm not sure about its all its limitations or all its benefits, but this is a really cool place to start if you haven't used vectors before. Okay, when it comes to finishing your bit of work, for example this, then you just export it, and then it takes you to some different options here. Okay, so obviously we've got pricing options there, and then we've got a draft option, which is free. So for example, these are the different vector file formats that we would like to that we use to download the images, apart from this one, which is a Photoshop file. But you can download these files here and choose which pricing option you want. For me, I would always use a free one, and then this comes with it comes at a low resolution with a watermark. Okay, you can get that for free. It's going to download it for you, and you could use that just as a draft even. So you could use this really as a really good tool to quickly draft up some graphics before you take it in Illustrator, before you take it into Inkscape. It could be the halfway house between you sketching on a piece of paper to quickly drafting something up, because all these elements are already in place here. But I really advise you to explore this. Not really. I don't really like the paid option. Obviously, we're looking for free things that we can use to express ourselves creatively. However, if you look at some of these backgrounds, and if you look at some of these icons, for example, they'll give you some really good ideas on how vectors are created. Now, if you look at, let's go back a minute. Let's go back quickly. If you look at this image, for example, right? I've just brought this image in of it looks like a baby's top. Okay, if you double click on that image and click on the colors, for example, you can change the colors for that image, but you can also see how this image is created using different shapes. Okay, and it's these different shapes that are really going to help. The basic shapes are really going to help you out when it comes to drawing your own vectors. Okay, so for example, you could use a rectangle tool for the main body of this top, with rounded edges, and in fact I can show you how to do that now, and I'll do it very quickly. So I'll take a quick print screen of that, and let's just quickly show you roughly how these vectors are created. But the benefit to this program is that you can see the different elements that are used to create quite complicated images, like that, for example, or the hand, for example, here, where they look like complex images, but all they are is shapes repeated. Okay, so if I take that, I could take this hand, for example. I'll bring this into Illustrator just to show you. And again, this is not a session on how to use Illustrator. I'm just showing you some quick ways that we use Illustrator in order to generate a vector graphic. So vector graphics can be conceived as really complex things. Okay, but they're not. All they are is, if you're clever with the images that you use, so that's that hand, for example. If you're clever with the images or the shapes that you use, and I'm deliberately not talking through the tools that I'm using, because I just want to show you how these images are constructed. Okay. So there's the first finger, for example, and then all I'm going to do is copy that couple of times to make the next one. I'll shrink that down, move that down. Okay, add some. Okay, and then there's bits of play that we can do with the rounded edges. In fact, I'll come out of there. I'll do it again quickly. Do that. Round the edges over. Rounded corners, sorry. Drop that down a bit, like that. And all these techniques that I'm doing and more, and in fact you guys probably might have a better understanding of Illustrator than I do. Please let me know what if there's any tools that you recommend, that if you see me doing something that you think actually I know a better way of doing that, let me know. But this is the way I do it. And all these tools, all these here are just recommendations and ways that I've learned how to deal with things, create vector images. So there we go. We're just going to have a thumb over there, and then this little bit here, we're going to create that. Well, for simplicity, just because I'm quickly showing you on the fly, I'm just going to join these two up. I'm going to make that a little bit fatter and join that up. There we go, and then I'll probably duplicate that as well, rotate that round. Let's create the bottom half of the hand, and this is where we get into the nitty-gritty of creating images. Okay, and then I'll probably copy that. In fact, I'll take that out and move that all the way up. Move that along a touch. And I'll merge that with that. And I'll bring these fingers on the top. Now it doesn't look exactly like it, but I've just been doing it on the fly. And I'll bring that in front of it there. And this is about layer order now, something we'll be talking about a little bit later. And then obviously this shape isn't exactly like that, and we would then mess about with that. And then if you wanted to, you would probably put the collar on. And now, like, I have to admit guys, this isn't perfect at all, but this is using basic shapes and a few basic techniques in order to generate something that looks quite complicated. Okay, so that is a vector. As you can see, it's made up of a load of boxes and blocks, and that's your vector made up of loads of different paths. Okay, based on really basic shapes. All right, so where was I? So that's this Icon 8, really good program just to get you to log on to. It's online. You can have a quick look at creating your own. If you don't have a good understanding of what vectors are at the minute, this is a really good starting point, because it's got all these library parts in here, and you can construct and move around your and form your own artwork without really kind of your knowledge or understanding of vectors getting in the way. You can still have that creative output and put these and create something that looks quite nice. Then you can download that into a low resolution, and then you can move on to try and look at how you can construct that in a bit more detail using Illustrator. Okay, so that's Icon 8, and then we've got this vector program which is online as well, and I've only used this once or twice as well, but we'll have a quick look at this and I'll show you some of the tools on here as well. I'm just going to quickly flick back to our yeah, that's great. Yeah, all you need to do is scan in your artwork or take some photographs. That's what I tend to do now, guys. I'm just reading some of our chat here. Scan it, create your artwork on a pen on your pads. Take some photographs, and then you can mess about with the image from there. Now this is Vector, VECTR. This is a little bit more advanced, I think, than Icon 8 because it allows you to create your simple vectors here, as I was doing in Photoshop. Can you see me create the different images? You can change the colors here. There's your color control. You've got the gradient control here. You've got border control. If you want the border on the inside or the outside, do you want it thicker? What color do you want it, for example? And all these processes are all practically the same in Illustrator. Okay, the tools might be in a different location, but changing the color, for example, it has the same kind of terms that we can use. So we're looking to change the background color. Linear gradient is exactly the same terms that would be used in Illustrator and I presume in Inkscape, and we'll have a look at that soon. Shadows and things like that. Okay, so the same terms and usually the same style of icons are similar. So if you're having a play around with this and you're new to vectors, you can have a play around with vector here online, and then you can say, right, I'm looking to make that gradient, right? I've got Illustrator, I've got Inkscape, how can I create a gradient in Illustrator? Now you can open Illustrator up, you can have a quick look here and see if you can find a similar tool, and there it is. There's your gradient tool. Now how to apply it might look a little bit different, and it might be something that we'll look at later on in the course, but it's a good starting point, guys, these online tools, because it doesn't give you access to all the advanced tools that are available in Illustrator and Inkscape and CorelDRAW. CorelDRAW is another vector-based program that you might want to look into. It doesn't give you all the advanced tools, but we don't need the advanced tools when we're first starting out. We're looking at the basic tools, and as you can see from that little that hand that I made there, obviously it's not fantastic, but I didn't need to use any advanced tools there to create that. So you can create some really interesting bits of artwork from the most basic tools. So there's the shapes. Then we've got a pen tool. Now guys, the pen tool is probably it's going to be your bread and butter tool in creating your artwork. Okay, and after our break in 15 minutes time, I'm going to demonstrate how we're going to use some of these tools together, and how we're going to capture some sketches from my sketchbook. Okay, but this pen tool is going to be your bread and butter tool in either Inkscape, either Vector, this program here, or in Illustrator. And what it is, it's when we were talking about the difference between a vector-based image and a raster-based image, the vector-based image, remember guys, it's plotting points on your workspace, geographical points. So I've clicked on my pen tool here. I'm going to tell the computer I want to put a point there, and I've clicked my point, and then I'm going to put a point here. But if I hold down on that point, I can move these additional points that have come out that I'm still holding down on. These are called anchor points, and they are used to create curves. Okay, and the computer now knows that we've got 3 points here, and I'll just leave that for now, and I'll see if I can select it. So the computer knows. Never used this program before up until today, and I'm trying to show you the points on here. Let me do it again quickly so I can describe what I'm talking about. So the computer knows that with this shape that I've just drawn, we have 3 points at the minute. 1, 2, 3. These points at the end of the red line, they're called anchor points, okay? But we've got 3 points, so the computer knows we've got 3 points and then 2 anchor points, and these 2 anchor points are in these locations specific to these, in relation to these points, so the computer knows exactly what shape is going to form from these. And if we scale that up, these points are going to be in the same position relative to each other, and the shape will remain the same, and that is the difference, remember. Okay, so that's your pen tool. When I was learning how to use a pen tool, I'm not a professional at it by any stretch. I can make me basic shapes and I can tweak them a little bit and whatever, but it is a tool that might need some practicing to get used to, but practice makes perfect. We've also got some other cool little, I'm going to delete that. We've also got a pencil tool. If you've got a tablet, if you've got a graphical pen like this, for example, you can use that on your tablet to hand draw directly into your computer, guys. So we don't need to necessarily use our sketches. We just need our graphical pen if you have one, or if you've got a tablet or something like that. And then you would just use I'm not using my pen at the minute. You can use your mouse as well, and then you can just draw those shapes on. This is using the mouse, but you could do exactly the same thing. Instead of using the mouse, using your graphical pen. Then we've got text tool. This is exactly the same icon as in Illustrator. Remember, we're not in Illustrator at the minute. We're in this online-based vector generating program, and you can just type in your text. You can select that text, and then you could somehow find out how to change the color, the size, and everything else. What else we got? And then you can upload your images. Okay. And then they've even got more preset shapes here, you know. So this could be really useful for many different applications. One application could be designing a logo for a business. Let's say you're creating jewelry, for example, and you want to create your own logo. The reason why vectors are used to create logos, and let's have a quick look at a little Google search, vectors for logos, maybe. Here we go. Here's some vector images here that are used for logos. And the reason why vectors are used for logos is that it can be scaled up. So when you're using, when you're creating your vector image and when you're creating your logo, you might want a logo that'll be a nice size for your business card. Okay, fantastic. You've created your artwork for that. Let's say you're not using a vector. Let's say you're using a raster image. You've used Photoshop and you're using a raster image and you've created that lovely, you spend hours and hours and hours creating this lovely logo. You put it on your business card, and then you've got a trade fair that you want to go to. You've got or craft fair that you want to go to. So you want to create a nice big poster. You couldn't take that image that you've used for your business card in Photoshop and and scale it up massive onto a poster, because it wouldn't work. And that's why we use vectors. So if we create that one logo in Illustrator in the vector-based program for our business card, we could open up that business card, copy that logo out, create a new document in Illustrator or Inkscape or CorelDRAW, whatever the program is that you're using, paste that logo in, and then stretch it up and scale it up to your heart's content, and you wouldn't lose any quality. Okay, and that is why we use vectors for graphics, for example. And when I say graphics, like logo design, graphics for graphics for packaging, for example, when the packaging will vary. So you might be creating a nice bit of artwork for some Kellogg's cornflakes or some cornflakes or Weetabix, something like that. But then those boxes and the packaging might change, so then you can easily alter them and things like that. All right. So where was I? Yes, you could also use it to create a template for a website. If you're creating your own website, for example, you could create quickly generate something like this, where this is your website page, your home page. Okay, and then you might want to just play around with the design of it, the background, for example. You might want buttons on there. You might want to put a button there. Now this isn't going to look great, but you get the picture. You might have a button there. Can you copy it? You can duplicate there. Look, you can create a button there. You can duplicate again. Put another button there. You can even probably add text to it somehow, or if not, you could put the text on top of that and change the text color. There we go. Very quickly, that could say home page or about us. Okay, what else we got? These are the font controls, the different types of font that we've got, how bold it is. Let's say we're going to make it extra bold, and then there you go. You could whack that on there. Obviously the layer order has changed a bit, so let's center this to the front. There you go. And obviously it's not the best website template you've ever seen, but you could use this quite easily to create a rough layout, you know, and obviously with a bit more time, a bit more creativity, you can create some really cool things. And once you've created your one button, you should be able to group these and copy them and duplicate them. You might want to upload an image. These could be images here, and it's just a really quick and easy way to start assembling artwork. You know, if you've got an idea, there you go. You might have a bit more text down here. There you go, and then you could save them out. And this is a good way of communicating your idea from a sketch. Okay, so that's Vector. Right, we're coming up to 5 minutes left of this first half, and then I'll set my camera up and hopefully be able to show you some little sketches. We've got 5 minutes, guys. Can I just take some suggestions as to what I could be sketching during the break? And then I'll sketch that in and show you something nice and simple so that I can sketch in, and then we'll use that to create some vector images. Just let us know in the yeah, you're absolutely right there. I'm just reading now a chat, and yeah, there's a lot more tools in Illustrator which we'll be covering over the next few weeks. That's better than the pencil. You're absolutely right there. The brush tool is great. We've also got some smooth tools in there. And I've come across a really cool tool I would love to show you later on that allows you to kind of bring images together quite easily. So that's you're absolutely right there, Lavender. Okay, where to go for more info? This is a really cool link done by Adobe, and this will be available in our presentation that's going to be made available. The link will be made available on our description in YouTube, and this talks to you about vector images, the different file formats in that you would associate with vector images, and the differences and things like that. Okay, so if you want a bit more information, it's all there for you, and there's probably a lot more other places online that you could probably find more information as well. We're not going to go into file formats today. That'll come in the up and coming sessions, but there are some common ones, and AI is a very common one. EPS are common as well. So this is really good for a bit more background knowledge if you want to do a bit of homework. Okay, so that's where we are with vectors, and that's what we're going to do. So we've got a bit what we've done first half. Really, we've just talked about the main elements to a vector-based image. Okay, but what I'm really excited to show you, mainly because I've just got myself a nice laser cutter, and I'm really interested in how we can use vectors to create like these really cool craft items. Okay, these craft items here, where you can create your vectors in whatever program you choose to make, and then you can make like these really cool like kind of patterns. There's a laser cutter there doing its thing, cutting out the shapes out of wood. Look, there's a keyboard cut out of the shapes cut out of a piece of wood. You've got maps there laid on top of each other. You can create all kinds of cool stuff, and this is one of the reasons why I really want to look at working with the vectors in a little bit in a bit more of a professional way. As you can see for this example, which is quite cool, you've got a SpongeBob model. Now obviously this isn't printed or this isn't cut. The whole thing isn't cut, but it's a bit like an Airfix kit. This will be cut out of flat sheets of plywood, and then they'll be stuck together to create this cool 3D little model there. And if you've got the if you can get the plans for something like that, or if you can create your own plans for something like that, and you could draw those in Illustrator, you could actually make something along those lines as well. Before we go, I'm going to have a quick navigate. Can I do this now? I'll see if I can quickly navigate. I'll have to show you after the break. I'm going to show you a really cool project that we've done at Media Savvy a few years ago. I've mentioned it with a few guys before, but we actually done a session on well, it wasn't specifically a vector-based program course, but it was generating, looking at creating flat bauble shapes and artwork, and then we got them cut out of this kind of ply, and it was a really exciting project that we done with Sunderland Care and Support, and I'll dig out those images and I'll show you. I've even got some videos to show you as well for that project, and that will really give you some good ideas as to how what we're learning today and what we'll be learning over the next few weeks, how you could apply that to your artwork. Okay, so we're coming up to 2 o'clock now, guys. If I can just say we'll break for like 10 minutes, I'll dig out those images for you. Any suggestions in here, give me a shout in our chat. That'll be fantastic. Any ideas on what you would like the sessions to look like moving forward? Any tools that you would like me to kind of point out? If you've got any questions about any of the tools that I might be looking at, give me a shout. Anything, back in the chat. I'll keep on popping in and out of the chat just to see what you guys have got going on. All right, so we're gonna have a little break now. Be back at 2:10. Okay, thanks very much. Okay guys, welcome back. Just quickly making sure that everyone's back in. Okay, yeah, so welcome back here. Welcome back to our first session. It's our taster session on it's called Crafty Illustrations, and this basically is a course that is geared to individuals that are looking to take their craft skills up to another level. Okay, so it might be somebody who's interested in creating illustrations, and then they want to look at how to create those, turn those illustrations into or duplicate those illustrations and use those illustrations in a digital format, and then how we could use those illustrations in a digital format and how we can output them into other mediums. Okay, so as explaining before, we've got a difference between the two image types, and we've got vector and raster. Raster images are your photo images and things like that, which are made up of blocks. Our vector images are what we are concerned with in terms of the illustration style that we're going for, and the illustration type we're going for in Crafty Illustrations. Okay, we're looking at how to use our hand-drawn skills, taking a photograph or scanning those hand-drawn skills into the computer, and then using a variety of different tools to create some really cool vector graphics. Okay, now before we had a little break, I talked to you guys about a project that we ran at Media Savvy a few years ago, and the reason why this is important and why it's relevant and what we're doing today is that we created some vector images as well in this project. And now this project was a project that we ran with Sunderland Care and Support, and we went into the facilities at Sunderland University to utilise their 3D laser cutting facilities they have there. And what we did was we created a project at Christmas time around Christmas symbols. Okay, so as you can see from the images here, here this is a good example. We designed these baubles here in our creative sessions with the guys at Sunderland Care and Support, and we had discussions around what people thought Christmas was and what kind of images they associated with Christmas and things like that. And then we designed these bespoke Christmas baubles. Okay, all of them were the same size with a little hole in. And what we did was we bought these this nice Christmas ribbon. We cut it down, threaded it through, and then we got these lovely craft bags. And we also laser cut made our own stamps and laser cut our logos out of some rubber material, and we got some paint, as you can see here, and some stamps, and decorate the bags with the stamps there. This is the picture from the creative class that we did to create those images, and this is the guys assembling the bags and putting all the baubles together. Okay, these images were used by using vector images. So the images were sketched together in our sessions by hand, and then I took them into Illustrator and created those images so they could be used by the laser cutter there. And there's a laser cutter at its work there, cutting out those images out of the ply. So that was a really, really useful project, and just to really show you guys what is possible with a vector image. You can create pop-up cards. I was just looking during the break here. You can create these are some downloadable plans here for different models. There we've got a kind of a mosaic vector here, which is a bit mosaic, or what do you call it? A puzzle. We've got laser cut trucks here, a vector based. To see if I can download one or two to show you guys. We've got little jewelry boxes that are available to download. But these things you could create using a vector-based program, a bit like Illustrator. We've also got model planes that are available. If I just quickly show you, this is one of the examples I really wanted to show you before we broke for lunch. Broke for halfway through the session. So this is the 3D model of what you would be making, and this here is the actual vector here. So this here, these shapes are all flat on that would be done in Illustrator or Inkscape, and these shapes here would be cut out of a piece of card or a piece of plywood, and then you would use them, put them together and sort them together to create this cool aeroplane here. So that is one application you could use your vector images for. You use them to create. Here I found this on Etsy. Here is a Barbie's little doll's house piece of furniture here that people are selling. We've got wooden lamps here. These are all cut out of. These are lovely. These cut out of thin pieces of wood. And as you can see here, this is a vector graphic DXF for a laser CNC machine. So this here, you're not buying the actual lamp. You're buying the file. So you're paying £3.60 for that file that you can download, and you can tweak and add your own little stamp on it, your own variations to it, to be able, if you had a printer or access to a laser cutter or a CNC cutter or something like that. What else have we got on Etsy, just to quickly show you? There you go. It's another doll's house plan there. That's all cut out of different pieces of wood, sheet wood. That's all slotted together. And then you can make jewelry as well. Laser cut jewelry. And then I'll just quickly show you this before we move on. There you go. These are really cool items here that people have designed in a vector-based program, and then they've cut them out of different materials. So here in this example, it looks like leather. There are different types of fabric here, but then you've got some wood that's been cut in certain ways to create these lovely different shapes, these three-dimensional shapes, and you can download those as well. They're called here twisted SGV pendants, and SGV is the file format which you would download in order to access those files. And if you click on that, that's what you would be downloading. Okay, those patterns. And the computer, if you had a laser cutter or a CNC cutter, would identify these paths and just cut them out, and then you'd be left with these shapes that will be removed from that piece of wood or whatever it is, leather, and then you would put your different things in there to turn them into jewelry. Okay, so that's the different applications that I think is really exciting, especially in the craft world at the minute. Okay, lots and lots of things that you could create from your own artwork. All right, so what did I promise you guys? Right, I did promise you a quick drawing session, so that's what we want to do now. What I'm going to look at doing quickly is showing you, see if I can show my printer, show you my artboard here, my sketchboard. Just bear with me 1 minute. I'll set this up so we can you can see There we go, that's that. There, brilliant. Okay, click on that. And I'm just trying to set up my camera here so I can show you guys my screen. Just bear with me 1 minute. Okay, looks like we're going to have a few issues with that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go on to the internet, and I'm going to find some sketches of, say, a birthday card, or let's say some jewelry. See what we can find here. Let's say earrings, maybe. I'm going to use this image. I'll save that to my desktop. And what I'm going to do now, guys, is I'm going to pretend that we've just sketched this. Let's say we've designed a bit of jewelry like we see here. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you how we would vectorize that in Illustrator. Okay, so we're going to move these to one side. I'm not going to show you the tools again, a bit like the hand. I'm just going to show you what is possible in using our sketch. Okay, and then for next session I'll make sure my camera's set up in a way that you'll be able to see me actually live sketch, and then how we bring it in. But bringing the image into Illustrator or Inkscape is exactly the same process. You would take a photograph, you would capture it so it goes onto your computer, and then you would place the image. So I need to locate that image now on my desktop, so I'm going to find that somewhere. Somewhere it'll be kicking around. Let's see, where is it? In fact, a quick way of doing it is we'll do a screenshot. Okay, so that might be better. So you would place it, you would locate the image and place it in there. But because I can't find it, I'm just going to screenshot it in. So there it is there. And then here we have this lovely earring pendant. Okay, now instead of making them out of diamonds, because obviously diamonds are quite expensive, we will make them out of we're going to make them out of wood. Okay, nicely shaped wood. So all these are, if you can see these images now, all these shapes, for example, are if we break this E-ring down, it's just a series of basic shapes. Now these basic shapes, just bring some colour up here so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to zoom in a touch more. So as you can see, these basic shapes are just circles and squares. So all I'm doing is making one circle and duplicating it and resizing it. Okay. And that's all I'm doing here. To vectorize. And when I say vectorize, it's just making a vector representation of this image here. Just resizing them. And I'm not, this session, guys, isn't about me explaining what I'm talking about, the tools and techniques, really. It's just showing you what will be possible in the forthcoming sessions. So all I'm doing is roughly making these images, these shapes, just basically tracing over the image, copying these, putting them together. There we go. And then we've got all the circles in, and then let's get some squares in there because that's the next shape. I'll just pinch the same colour, red, and then I'll move this over here, rotate it slightly, and then again exactly the same trick here, there, rotate it round. Okay, and then we've got a couple of rectangles in there, so I'll just stretch that out. And then we might have a few little ones as well. So I'll copy the circles again and make them even smaller. Zoom in a touch, a bit more. And then you might just put a few of these dotted around the image here. And for speed, I might copy a few of them at once. Might group them. Okay. And then you can just copy that group, duplicating these. As you go, you might want to rotate them to make them look a little bit different. And as you can see, you're building up this image quite quickly, literally with really simple shapes. Okay, and then what we might want to do is create a new layer, and I'll explain all this in more detail in the forthcoming weeks. But as you can see, when we hide that image there, that's what we're going to be left with. Okay, and that's your vector. These are your vectors, and if I click on these individual elements here, you can see that this shape, I'll change the color because I'll move this onto the white background because it's playing around with my eyes a little bit. But as you can see, each of these images, if I take that circle and I'll make a copy and take it over here, this circle here is made up of, how many points is it made up of? It's made up of 1, 2, 3, 4 points. And as you can see, these are the anchor points here that form that circle. Okay, so that circle is made up of the same number of points as a square, and if I bring the square over to show you, these square little handles aren't the points, by the way, guys. These are just ways to stretch the image. If I just show you now, these are the points that form that shape. So we've got 4 points there. But the main difference between, I'm just going to rotate it so it's sitting roughly as a square. The main difference between the circle and the square is the circle has these anchor points that stretch out. So if I move that anchor point, for example, can you see the shape changing there? Whereas the anchor points for this, they don't. The anchor points all remain in that one point. If I stretch them out, if I stretch that out, and there are tools, I won't go into the detail of these tools, but there are tools here that will allow you to stretch these points out. You can then change the shape of different images. There we go. Okie doke. So that's how you would create that. And then in order to utilize this in a way where you might want to, if you wanted to use it to cut out images and things like that, then you would use a third-party program. And again, that's something that we would look at a little bit further down the line in the next couple of weeks. Now, let's go back a little bit. I mentioned a lot about Inkscape earlier, and this is what Inkscape is. Inkscape is it's a free vector-based program. Remember, Illustrator is a vector-based program. Inkscape is also a vector-based program. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create something. Let's look for something a little bit more interesting than just circles and squares. Let's see if we can find, let's say, aeroplane, for example. Model plane. Okay, let's see what we can find here. So there's that image that I was showing you before. And that here is the different parts that form that aeroplane there. Okay, so what we're going to look at doing is we're going to look at creating this more advanced shape here. Okay, I'm going to just take a quick screen grab of that. And I'm going to show you the tools that I would consider using in Illustrator, and then we're going to compare them with the tools available in Inkscape, just to show you the comparison. Alright, because the tools should be very, very similar. So just bear with me 1 minute while I crop this image down, resize it a touch. Now, as we done this image about an hour ago, where we created loads of different basic shapes, this plane is obviously made up of a few more complicated shapes. So what we're going to use is this pen tool, and if you remember when we were using this program, this online program, it was where was it now? It was, I think it was Vector. Vector had a pen tool that was that, and we played around with the different points, and I was explaining how the pen tool works. We're going to do that in Illustrator, and then I'm going to show you that in Inkscape. Here, if I can just maybe change my preferences. Try and make me tools a little bit bigger so you can see them. Have to look at that for next time, I think, because of workspace maybe. Okay, we'll look at making these a little bit bigger for next time. But the tool that we're looking at is the pen tool, which is that. Okay, and what we're going to do, I'm going to just turn this to green so you can see. We're going to go around this shape here, and we're just going to create the whole shape. We're going to forget about the windows for a minute, and we're going to make this shape. Zoom in a bit, and we're going to roughly do it because we're going to go back and tweak some of the shapes here. I'm really roughly doing it, guys, because I'm conscious of time. Okay, and that is the shape there. I'll just change the transparency a little bit so we can see the image underneath it. There we go. And then what we'll do is we're going to tweak some of these points. When I say tweak, I'm just going to change them slightly so we can make them fit the image. Okay, so there we go. That looks a little bit better. All that looks alright for now. That might need to be moved down a little bit. That might need to be moved down here, and everything else looks alright. That's not rounded, but it's not so bad for now. Then we've got that image, that shape sitting on top of the image. And what we're going to look at now is going to make the windows using the same pen tool, which is that again. And I'll talk to you about the pen tool in a lot more detail in the forthcoming weeks. I'm just going to show you how you do something a bit more complex than the basic shapes that I've been using during the session today. And then I'm going to join that up. Okay, and then I'll need to zoom in a bit. Messed up a bit there. There we go. Okay, and then what we can do really, if I just change that a little bit. Probably copy that. You can flip it around a bit. Again, it's not perfect, but we're not after perfection today. It's just a demonstration. And I'm going to just make it fit a little. Okay. So if I drag these two shapes out of the way, I'll move them over there. That's what it looks like. Okay. I'll put the transparency back up there. So what we've got is we've traced around that image here to create this. And what we were left with is one image here, which I'm going to put red, maybe orange. And then we've got the two windows, which I'm going to put, let's say, green. I'm going to fill those in. I'm going to get rid of the lines. So well, actually, I'll change that to a different color, yellow. So we've got three objects here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to cut these images, that one there and that one there, the yellow and the green and the yellow, and we're going to cut them out of that one shape. And we're going to use these to cut them out of this orange shape. And we'll do that using a Pathfinder tool, which is over here. Again, I'll explain that in a bit more detail, and you'll be left with that bit more complicated shape than what we've been looking at previously. And as you can see, that one shape there is made of loads of different points. There's one point there, one there, all to create these different curves and different straight edges, which is one element of that model that we saw in this scenario here. And they're called free pattern. This is on a website called Free Patterns. .com, and we can explore this. And actually, there's 3 vector files there as well. So we'll have a quick look at that before we finish for the day. So there's the image that we've just created in Illustrator. Let's have a quick explore of Inkscape. Okay, I'm going to close Inkscape down for a minute. I'm going to show you what it looks like from the very beginning. Okay. So, Inkscape is this icon here. Looks like a little mushroom or a little splodge of ink. Double clicking on it there, and it comes up with this little window, and we're looking for a quick setup, and we're looking at a default canvas, and then the appearance. There's a different appearance mode, and let's put it on to dark. So no, let's put it to white, so there's a big difference between Illustrator and Inkscape. Click OK. There's different ways to develop the program. You'll find with programs like this, guys, because they're free, because people contribute and help them develop. Okay. And then I'm going to create a new document. And this is what Inkscape looks like. This is Inkscape, one vector program, which is free. You can download it. This is Illustrator, which is a paid version, a paid vector-based program. It's not a paid vector. It's not a paid version of Inkscape. They're 2 completely different programs, but they generate the same vector-based files. Now, at the top, you've got your standard file edit, layers, and views. At the top, you've also got your layers here. You've got some tools here. What are these? You can export. You can import. Bring in images. You can send images out from this program, and then you've got your tools on your left hand side. So I'm going to bring in that image of the plane, and we're going to explore Inkscape to create the same image here. Okay, now what do we have in Inkscape? We've got an edit paths tool, which we have in Illustrator, and I'll show you those in more detail in the forthcoming weeks. We've got the basic shapes that you've seen me use in Illustrator, just as a quick comparison. You've got different shapes here, swirls. You have those in Illustrator, and then you've got your pen tools, pencil tools, and things like that. So let's have a look at the pen tool. There's a pen tool, very, very similar to. So you've got 3 different drawing tools here, and this is a Bezier one. This is the one that we want. The symbols are very similar, but they'll probably do things in different ways. And if you hover over the point, or hover over the toolbar, the tools, it'll say draw a Bezier curve, and that's what and straight lines. So if you hover over it, gives you the instructions of what these are. So what that looks like, the pen tool to me, which is very similar to the pen tool in Illustrator. Here, however, they're slightly different. So if I'm going to click on this, this is what would be the first thing I would click on if I'm new to this program and I'm familiar with Illustrator. But this here, it says draw calligraphic or brush stroke. So let's have a look. It performs slightly different to Illustrator. So basically, that pen tool there is used for. Can you see the shapes changing as I create my curves? The curve kind of compresses in the corner, so that's not what we're after. But let's try this one. That performs in exactly the same way as the one that we want in Illustrator. So if I zoom in to okay, and also I'm trying to look at, I know the shortcut for zoom in Illustrator, but if we go to view and zoom, zoom in is plus. It's just simply plus in Inkscape. It's a little bit more straightforward. And then we can just move the toolbar to where we want it to be. Okay, so let's use this Bezier tool and let's create the same shape. So remember guys, Inkscape is free, so this will be the first place I would be looking if I want to explore vectors in a little bit more detail. And there's some great tutorials online that I'll be pointing you to in the forthcoming weeks. But if you just typed in, say for example, if you typed in Inkscape tutorials into YouTube, you'll come up with some really good tutorials to help you on your way. Now with Inkscape, we need to change some of these points to create those curves. In Illustrator, you've got certain tools that you can use for that. In Inkscape, you've got certain tools also, but they're just in a slightly different location. So what we need to do is zoom in slightly so we can see what we're doing, and we want to make that curve. Instead of it going in, we want it to go out. Now let's see how we would do that. So if you click on that point there, as you can see these anchor points, they spring out into action, and if we move them, the whole of the curve changes, and that's not what we want. So we want to move one of those anchor points if possible. And how would we do that? Let's try. Nope. So this is all about exploration here. See, so some different settings here for the different points. So if you click on the point here, it's a bit different in Illustrator. If you click on the point, you can make curves from that. So that point there, it allows you to create a curve from there, and that's really, so it gets you halfway there. Actually, this is probably slightly more user friendly than Illustrator because it gives you a bit of a helping hand there. Say for that one, it gives you, it rounds over that image, that edge, or you can create a point there from it. So it's just slightly different ways of working, which could get a little bit difficult, but once you're familiar with the idea of how these tools work, they generally do the same thing, and it's just kind of experimentation here at that point. So if we zoom out, minus, that's how you create the basic shape. Now what we did in Illustrator was we changed the opacity here. Now let's see if we can do the same thing. We definitely can in Inkscape, and if we can't, we'll just have to look at a different way of doing it. Now in Illustrator we had transparency. Let's quickly go to good old faithful YouTube here. I'm not an expert in Inkscape or Illustrator, but YouTube is. Inkscape and this is a really good example, guys, of not being a master really here. I'm not at all an expert, and I'm just trying to show you my thought processes and way I navigate things in order for me to learn new tools, and hopefully you'll see that, you know, that is possible, very possible, quite quickly and easily. We don't know everything.
Does more than catch errors.
So I'm just quickly looking at this,
you can find
this video
if you're
here.
familiar with how gradients work in Inkscape, then you probably already know that you can take an object and give it partial transparency by applying a gradient like that. Now, as you can see, the left-hand side of the object still has all of its color, whereas the right-hand side slowly transitions to transparency. What if you wanted to do the same thing to a group of objects, though? Well, give it partial transparency by applying a gradient like that.
Right, so let's have a look at that one, guys. So this person is talking about going to somewhere. Obviously their toolbar is set up slightly different hours. Let's have a look at document properties. Object, maybe it's something in the object section. Arrange, group, master markers. Nope. Edit. Nope. That's something maybe I need to look into, and I'll get back to you. However, let's try and go back a minute. And let's try and work out another way. So within Illustrator, we obviously could change that quite easily, because I knew how to do it, and change the transparency in order to trace over the windows. But what we really need to do is we need to find out what is it we're trying to do. We're trying to make that transparent so we can cut the windows out or trace over the windows. But luckily we have the windows in the one below. So we're going to zoom in. We're going to do it in a slightly different method, but we're going to make a note that transparency we need to look at. Now I'll bet you a packet of biscuits, it is very easy well, I bet you it is a feature. It is absolutely a feature in Inkscape, and as you can see from that little YouTube tutorial that we saw, it is there, but we just need to find out where it is. Now I've created that shape there. I'm going to duplicate that shape by right clicking on it and creating that shape, and then I'm going to change the shape of it. Oh, change the color of the line. I'll change that to red. Oh, duplicate that, resize that, position that there, and then rotate. It's very simple in InDesign. Can we rotate? Again, I'll bet you another packet of biscuits we can, but I just can't see how to do it. If we click on it, oh, there you go. If you click on it, so if you click on it once, you can bring up the nodes. If you click on it twice, click away from it. Click on it twice, you can bring up the anchor points. If you click on the object, oh, had it there for a minute. It's obviously gone somewhere else. So you click on it once. Right, okay, sorry, excuse me. So click on the selection tool, click on that, and then you can stretch and modify it. If you click on it again, it brings up its rotation properties, and there you can see you can rotate it. There you go. One pack of biscuits down. Okay, click on it again, you can resize. Okay, so we've got that. You can select both of them by clicking Shift, moving them up roughly where they need to be. Okay, now the last task before we finish for today is cutting those out of here. Now let's have a look at that. If I right click on here, fill, move, create, set mask clip, no. Let's have a quick look, because I do know the term used in Illustrator is called Pathfinder. So let's quickly Google that and see if I can find that. So Inkscape Pathfinder. Subtract, multiply, divide. Let's quickly look at this video and see what happens.
Working with shapes to cut out other shapes or adding shapes. So in this case, I'm going to choose to make a cube, a circle. Okay, and right now they look very stylized, and also realize in outline they just look like this. Okay, again, Control 5 on the number pad will allow you to toggle between. So in this case, I want to take this shape and join it to this shape. Well, there's path. Now look at the
there we go, guys. Okay, so if we look on our Inkscape program, it's path where the person showed us. Okay, so that's where we need to go to cut those two shapes out of that shape there. So if you've got path, we've got union. We don't want to combine them because it'll just add them to there. We want to cut them out. So let's say difference. Okay, I'll undo that because what it's done is it's only used one of them. Let's see if I can combine these together. So I've combined those two together, and then hopefully now the computer will read those two elements as one. Go back to path, click difference, and that, there we are. Okay, we've cut those two elements out of that shape there. And if I move that out of the way, get rid of this, we've very quickly, with very little experience using Inkscape, we've been able to generate exactly the same kind of effect. Okay, we've used I'll move this out of the way, move this, delete that. This is Illustrator, and I'll make it green just to compare. So that's that shape there we've done in Illustrator using a very similar tool. We used the pen tool in Illustrator, and it, in Inkscape they called it a Bezier tool. And then we done exactly the same process to cut. We drew the images, we drew the windows out of a different image because we struggled to find the transparency. Moved the windows in Inkscape onto the shape that we've already created, and then we combined those as one image and as one object, and then cut those out of that one shape. So there's Inkscape, and there's Illustrator there. Okay, Inkscape is the only difference is Inkscape has got a black line out that outlines the shape, and if we wanted to make that transparent. There you go. Well, not transparent, sorry, but just remove the line. That's how we do that. Okay, guys, so that's it for today's session. Just a quick overview, a quick taster as to what's to come in our Crafty Illustrations series. We've looked at what a vector image is, and now hopefully you know that a vector image is it's an image that compiles of shapes and paths, and those shapes are created by little nodes, little points that define the shape and the position of those paths. Okay, whereas a raster is just built up of loads and loads and loads of different blocks or pixels. Okay, so that's what we've looked at today. What is a vector? What's the difference between a vector and a bitmap? We should know a little bit more about that now because we've looked at a video about that, and we've looked at different applications, why we use vector images, and we talked about business cards, for example. Talked about creating graphics for business cards, where you've got a small graphic here, for example, on a small card, and scaling it up, it wouldn't be appropriate to do that in a raster image, because those pixels are already defined. There's already a certain number of blocks in that one shape. If you just stretch it out, it'll just become blurry, because the computer then guesses what the other shapes or other pixels are going to be like. Whereas if you've done that in a vector-based image, computer knows those points relative positions to each other, and you could scale it up hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different times, and you wouldn't lose any resolution. Okay, why we use vector images? Yes, we talked about that. We talked about also the application of cutting them out, using the vector images to cut out cool little things in our crafts area of kind of expertise, creating jewelry and earrings and different cool things like that. We looked at, there's some earrings there, created it from those vector images there. We looked at, look, here's a bigger example of these flat images cut out of flat panels using that vector, those vector paths, and some cool other cool applications there. You can also use them for we can use them for things like this, pop-up cards, pop-up books, for example. All those will be used using vector graphics. So if you've got some really cool ideas for books or jewelry or model airplanes, model cars, model dinosaurs, anything like that you would like to probably duplicate and do more than once without wasting all that time, vector images is the way to go. So for example, if we were to make this book, can you think of how long it would take to make that pop-up book? If you're using a scalpel, for example, it would take you hours and hours and hours, and probably lots and lots of different errors to create that. Can you imagine if you made that book by hand and you sold that book, and then you got an order for another 100 books or another 1,000 books by hand? It would be quite a process to do. Whereas if you had a vector image, you could do that quite easily once you put the energy into creating that artwork in the first place. Okay, so that's the benefit of using vector images, and we're going to look more along the next 5 weeks. We're going to look at creating artwork for different scenarios that you could. These files and these different artwork pieces here will be we'll design them and make them in the session. We'll use hand drawn first, and then we'll sketch them and take a photograph of them, put them into a vector-based program. We'll generate the vector images from that, and then I'll make those files available for you guys to download, play around with them yourself. Okay, and we're going to do that for 5 different activities: creating birthday cards or birthday images, or graphics for birthdays, graphics for civil ceremonies and things like that, anniversaries, bereavements. The list can go on. We're going to create some really bespoke artwork, and then we're going to turn it into vector-based images, and then we're going to use those. Then you can use those vectors to assemble your own ideas and your own designs moving forward. Okay, so that's what we've done today. Don't forget, guys, we've got our enrollment forms. Please download them from this link here. I'll put this presentation in our descriptions in our YouTube channel. Please download that, and please, all you need to do is fill in sections B and C. So it's just basic information. Takes less than 5 minutes, and we really need those for our funders, okay, to demonstrate that we are engaging with the people that we say the people that we plan to engage with, and to be able to demonstrate that we are actually engaging with people out there. Okay, and then we've got our survey at the bottom here. Just click the link, fill in that survey, and give us some feedback, and we'll take your feedback on board for future sessions. All right, guys. So that's where we are with Crafty Creatives and Crafty Illustrations. There's going to be some more exciting tools and explorations using Inkscape and using Adobe Illustrator. Anything that you find during the week, guys, give me an email. My email is on this presentation here, which I'll make available to you. If you've got any feedback or anything that you would like us to explore in the next sessions, please, again, send me an email and whack it in the survey as well, and we'll look into doing that and including those your suggestions in our sessions. All right. But until next week, which will be session 1 of Crafty Illustrations, part of our Crafty Creative series that we are designing, we'll see you again next week. Next Thursday from 1 till 3. Okay, thanks very much, guys, for tuning in, and we'll see you then. Okay, have a nice weekend.